I'm Aisha Chabane,
I'm Zahra Muzaffar,
and welcome to Owlcast,
where we get to know your fellow Foothill community.
Today we are joined by Bruce McLeod, a professor in the theater department.
Stay tuned to learn more about his experience as director of the fall play, It Can't Happen Here.
I got into theater very early on. My parents took me to theater, and they were both active in community theater, so I just kind of got involved, and I would say it's probably always been part of my life, at least certainly as an audience and also doing stuff. And then I was, however, also a math major in college, and at some point discovered that it was really hard to do both, and that I really enjoyed doing theater more than I did math, as much as I loved it. And so I've had a great career. I've worked in theater as a stage manager, as a designer, as a technical director, and most recently directing here. So I worked a lot of connections in the area. I've been done a lot of work in community and professional theater around the Bay Area for many years, and I started teaching at Foothill. I think it's 10 or 11 years now, so kind of delayed, but I love it. I love the students. I love the energy that they bring to the projects, and I really love watching them succeed and watching them grow. And I think, and that's actually been one of the most rewarding parts about this particular production, is the growth I've seen in the student actors.
That's awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about the program at Foothill, like the theater department a little bit?
Yeah, we have one of the only really what we would call a comprehensive theater training program at the community college level in the Bay Area, certainly, and one of the few in Northern California or even in the state where you can come. You can take acting courses, you can take technical theater courses, you can learn about design, you can do shows. We have music theater, we have straight plays, we do all sorts of stuff. We produce 4 major productions a year, one every quarter. The biggest one is that we have done for many, many years a big old style Broadway honkin' musical up in the Smithwick Theater every summer. We took a year off a couple of years ago, but pretty much every summer for, I don't know how long they've been doing it, 30 years probably. Lots of awards, lots of graduates who've gone on to work in the business. Works pretty well. So it's a really, really long-standing tradition here at Foothill, and remarkably unknown. We just don't. I think we don't go out and do stuff like this. We don't blow our own horn enough. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I'm trying to do, we've been doing it with this show, that I've been trying to do as we get going here, is really get the word out that we exist and we're here, and we're an option for students. I mean, I think it's hard in this. We're finding it's hard in this area because so many of our students are focused on 4-year schools, mm-hmm. and I know there's a tremendous amount of pressure on students to follow those particular career paths, and sometimes it's a hard choice to make to come here. But I mean, it's a great school. Mm-hmm. I mean, I spend a lot of time, not a lot of time, but a lot of energy, and meet a lot of people on campus, and know a lot of other faculty in different departments in various ways, and everything I've seen at this school in the 10 years I've been here has been exceptional. You get a great education regardless of your field, and it's a great step up. So I'm a big fan of not just my program, but the school in general.
Yeah. So switching gears a little bit.
Sure.
Do you want to tell us about It Can't Happen Here, and kind of how that came about? Why was that?
Why am I doing it?
Yeah.
Well, it was an odd process. I mean, normally my process is that and I get this question every about every show I've directed. You know, why do you do this show? What's important about it, and all that. And until this show, one of my answers has always been, you know, I want to do great plays that have some relevance to modern life, because that's part of why they're great plays. But also because I don't want to fix the play. I don't want to have to, you know, I don't want to do a play and go, oh gosh, it doesn't quite work. How can we make this happen? How can we make it work? Because plays are tricky, you know. And so, you know, I did Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. I directed Angels in America. I did Our Town last year. All of them great plays in their own right for different reasons, but they all have specific things to say about how people communicate and how they live their lives, and you know, how we survive in a modern world. But this is David Evans, my assistant director. So
Hello.
pull up a chair, David, and you know, join us. I was struggling to find a play that I felt was really relevant to the current. I hate to say political situation, but it was, you know, the current social situation, really, in terms of how people are relating to each other. And I came across this play partly because it premiered last year at Berkeley Rep, so it was kind of on everybody's radar. And I thought, oh, you know, but when I first read it, I wasn't sure it worked. I mean, I felt like it had the emotion, the intellectual part of it was great, and you know, and I talked to people who'd seen it in Berkeley as well, and they said, you know, well, we all kind of got the point, but I wasn't sure that emotionally people would respond to it, because part of theater is getting an emotional connection and getting some emotion out of the audience. You know, how do they feel, rather than, you know, you don't go to the theater completely just to think. You go to the theater to feel things, and I wasn't sure that this play would do that. And so I kind of resisted for a while, and then I went, oh well, what the heck, let's just do it, because it just kept showing up as so relevant and so. What's the word I'm after? Well, yeah, it just was a great exhibition of all the things that people are talking about and the way we're talking about the current situation. I mean, when you listen to the play, when you hear it, you know, you get every point of view about how this happens. You get, you know, people who ignore it. You get people in the play. You get characters in the play who are passionate from different angles. You get, you know, characters in the play who have every individual way of assessing how politics and how populism and how this sort of environment can and does get created. And that was what really finally sold me on the play. And I also had some ideas about how to maybe make the end of the play work. So, you know.
Vid Randolph Evans. I was lucky enough to assistant direct for this show under Bruce McLeod. It was my first time assistant directing, and I had a lot of fun learning all the stuff that I needed to learn and all the things I didn't know. But I guess, you know, just tailing off of what Bruce was saying, I think it's important if, you know, if the conversation is happening, it's important to sort of, you know, to contribute and add to it, especially, you know, political conversations. You know, I have a strong background in politics, and right now I think one of our biggest issues is that we've lost functioning rhetoric, meaning we can't talk about our problems in a way that resolves them. We talk about our problems in ways that makes them worse, in ways that makes us fight other people, in ways that make us feel trapped, in ways that make us feel victimized, and none of that is going to help, and it never will help. In fact, I would say it's pretty obvious that it's one of the biggest parts of the problem, but everyone else is running around thinking that they're entitled to their opinion, and they're not. People are entitled to work with each other and engage in functioning rhetoric with people that they don't like. That's what we have a right to, but we feel like we have a right to the opposite, where we can hold on to our opinions, not move, and let everyone else, you know, fight. And I feel like this production was really wonderful, as Bruce was saying, because the way it was written, and I am not sure if I mean this must come from straight from C.S. Lewis, but luckily that it made its way through to the adaptation. But it was brilliant foresight to say, look, these are all the different opinions and perspectives that come together and create the landscape that allows this sort of thing to happen. And it is nice to see that it's made up of not just passionate people on both sides, but also the dispassionate. It's also comprised of people that or you get to see the mechanism of the individuals that choose to do nothing and sort of what that sort of does. And throughout this play we see Doremus's wife is the prime example of that, being really sort of relaxed and disconnected from what's actually going on, but then our main character himself also throughout much of the play is struggling to figure out what to do and not really doing much. And I think that's it's wonderful to see that, because when we think about our lives and the big picture, what do we do? And it's hard to do much of anything. And I really appreciate how one of the stronger messages of the play is to begin with yourself, to start with the individual. It's actually, I think it's one of my favorite lines in the play that says, everything that's worthwhile in this world begins with the individual. And then my other favorite line from the play is that if you let your brain go slack, it hurts when you start to use it again. And I guess that goes back to my point about how just rhetoric we don't really have right now currently. We don't have enough of enough people knowing how to talk about the problems in ways that are beneficial, and we're gaining number of people that are talking about the problems in ways that are very destructive, but thinking that that's what they should be doing.
Okay. So can you guys tell us a little bit about the rehearsal process? How did that go? Are there any interesting stories you want to tell us about?
I don't know about
Anything
interesting stories, but it's a very complicated piece to put together. Because there are very few standard theatrical scenes. You get a few of them. You get 2 or 3 people talking about something for a short period, but most of them are short, and they're often a little bit dialectic in that they are sort of driven by the politics of the different characters. So it's very much actually like Shaw, who tends to get off in his little world about having a political discourse between 2 characters who become mouthpieces, and so there's a danger there. But also it's just that it travels so much in terms of locations and time of day and character development, and it's tricky because most plays you can look at each character and figure out where they're going through the course of the play. And in this play, it is much more about the collective and about an ensemble who create different worlds and different spaces, and trying to get that. It's very Shakespearean in that sense that you go from location to location like that, and there's not. It's also Shakespearean in the way that the dialogue helps you figure out where you are. That the characters will tell the audience not necessarily exactly where they are, but what's going on, and they'll give them information that allows them to access what's happening in the play at that point. But it's we spent a lot of time just figuring out where furniture was, and because I didn't want it cluttered by a lot of stuff, and I wanted something that was an open world that things could flow in and out of. So we have a basic set of different pieces of furniture, crates and boxes, and that double as other things, and tables and chairs, and just trying to keep track of all that stuff and where it is at this point, and especially when you're
And even still, it was minimal.
Yeah, and when you're rehearsing, the other challenge for the rehearsal process is students have lives. We all have lives, but it's many of them are working odd schedules. you're going to school, you're trying to figure out your class schedule. Many of the students in this, many of the actors in the show were taking evening classes and had to make arrangements either to miss class or to figure out what class they could miss. And we're juggling the rehearsal schedule around that. So who's available on? I think of the 5 nights a week that we normally rehearsed, we had one night where we thought we got everybody.
And we never did, except
well,
for the first run through.
Yeah, but
which
yeah,
is
so we really
very
didn't
lucky.
have the whole cast on a consistent basis, so it made it hard. But it's kind of the, I mean, my attitude is, that's one of the challenges. It's just figure it out. It's the way it goes. People are busy. We got it, and I will say I thought we got a great group. They are a really close group of actors. They help each other out. They work with each other. They enjoy each other backstage. Some of them, there's a group of them who hang out outside the theater every night after rehearsal for, I don't know, half an hour, sometimes longer. Just whatever. So it's a good group. So. But yeah, I'd say those are the challenges. And, the other challenge was trying to get the end of the play to work, to feel something, and I think we got close. I'm not quite sure it's there, but, it's an ending. Let's put it that way.
Not having, and literally this was true, not having the entire cast for any day. Like Bruce said, we had one day where we thought we would, but we never actually ended up having everyone until the first dress rehearsal. So throughout rehearsal, it was very interesting because really only Bruce and I and the stage manager and assistant stage managers could see the show coming together, and the rest of the cast. And this is typically how it is. The rest of the cast only saw what component that they were working on at the time, and of course, none of them could come all through the rehearsals until we started to get into dress rehearsals and then full runs, and just. It was interesting because it's like, okay, we're not even sure if these pieces are going to fit together, but we know that they will because it's our job to make it happen and we're not going to fail. And then as it started to come together, there's this interesting sense where it's like, okay, we can see the show, we've seen all the parts, but, actors would come up to me and say, hey, I realize we've never run, these critical scenes, or, one of our principals kept bringing up a couple scenes. I was like, no, we've actually run those. But we've run them with ensemble and just without the principals, so that the ensemble knows what to do, and we're going to run them either tonight or some soon upcoming rehearsal, and we'll be able to interject you and just inject you right in, and you'll know what to do. The people around you will know what to do, and it'll work out that way. And along with that was just the nature of the way the show is written. Every scene Venn diagrams with the next, and there's several scenes that take place simultaneously on stage, and so there's never a real smooth transition from one thing to the next thing. It's always overlapping, and we do have a lot of moving individuals that have announcement parts that don't necessarily have character bits, and so they have to come on, have their announcement in mass, and then they need to leave. Furniture and set needs to be adjusted in correspondence with that. And because everything does Venn diagram, it's just constantly moving. And so that would be difficult to do if every single rehearsal night we had the entire cast. We didn't. So we had to work out all these moving pieces with only the limited pieces that we had each night. And let's say we got 70% of people, each night, but it was a different 70%. And people would have to figure out and fill in, and we'd have to let them know, and it was a very interesting process, just to the nature of the show, and the complications that we had just for scheduling. But it was a really amazing process to watch come together, and my favorite part really is the first night, and the first night we had everybody was also the first full run through. And that was it. Just worked out that way, because a couple other nights we had tried to get everyone, and there were other complications and things. But that was really special to see the whole show finally played out. I mean, this is before tech, but it was played out slowly and still early in the process. But it was the first time to see the whole show come together, and the whole cast could see the whole show.
I mean, that part of it is actually not uncommon. The sense that that
Yeah.
nobody sees it, nobody sees the whole thing for a while. because most shows, even if you have everybody available, you're not necessarily rehearsing them in sequence. You're not putting them
hardly
together
ever
in
are, yeah.
sequence because you just don't. You work, and even if everybody's together, you might take 2 hours and work with these two actors on all the scenes that they have together, and that was essentially what was going on. We would have a rehearsal dedicated to what I call the family. So those scenes with the family, and they're scattered throughout the play, so we do all of those in one night. And then you come back and you do all the ensemble sort of narration sections in one night. So that's that part of that sort of putting it all together in pieces is not uncommon. This one was the other trick with this play is that the way it's written, it sort of gathers steam and gathers energy, and one of the ways that it does that as the play goes on is that the scenes become shorter. And as David said, they start overlapping more, they become very quick. You get these very short scenes with 3 people, and then boom, you're in the next one, and then you're in the next one. Whereas early on in the play, you get 3 or 4 minute scenes where you have 2 or 3 characters, they have a conversation about something, we start to figure out what the relationships are. But as the play goes forward and we get to the second half of the second part, it's really just very much bang, 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 and they do, and they did that on purpose, because that's what's happening in the story, is that things are moving faster.
So looking forward, how can students get involved in theater at Foothill?
They can call me anytime. They can send me an email. They can come take a class. But I actually do deal with that a lot. I have students who, in fact, I just had a meeting last week with a potential student who, sent me an email a couple of weeks before and said, "Look, I've done theater in high school, and I've been out of it for a while. How do I get involved?" I said, "Okay, come on, let's talk. Let's find out what your time's like, because you can be as small as a couple hours a week taking a class, or it can be as consuming as being a leading character in a play. I mean, and that's a tremendous amount of time. I mean, we rehearse for 5 or 6 weeks, 4 or 5 nights a week. It varies depending on the show, and then we do 3 weekends of performances. So and we can do anything in between. So that's how they get involved. Is just to contact us. Contact any of the theater arts instructors. Me, Tom Goff, Janice Bergman, Melissa Carey. We all have different ways of doing it, but we all, we'll find ways to get people involved. And what we find, and you don't have to have ever been in a theater before. I have students, actually the young woman who ran sound, she actually was our sound operator for the first half of the run. We trade off sometimes. She was, I'm not sure she still is, but she was an engineering student. And she's spending a lot more time over here, so I don't know if she's changed her major or not, but she came in and said, I'm interested in making things and doing things and learning about this stuff, and you guys seem to be doing all that stuff, so how do I get involved? Just, okay, show up, here you are, here's the schedule, this is what we're doing. People can volunteer, they can come, we do sort of, certainly in the technical world, which is most of what I deal with besides directing this one show a year, it's very easy to find ways to get students involved. The hard part is actually getting students to know that we're here, so that's the trick. Dip your toe in. It's a little scary, but we're pretty friendly over here, and pretty accepting. So, I mean, theater. One of the things I really love about theater, and I talk about it in all my classes, is that it is I don't know if anybody else uses this term. I call theater a social art, because it doesn't have, if you're a painter, you don't need anybody else. You can just paint. And, if you're a performer, you need an audience, but you can write music on your own. You can be a playwright even on your own. But to see the whole thing come together, especially in a live situation, it takes a lot of people. and they all have to be working together. You know, they all can't be doing different things. They have different talents and skills, but they have to be committed to the same project, and that's what's really exciting, and that's how it works. So, you know, come on down. You know?
Yeah. Easy answer is take acting 1, or you know, if you don't want to do
or
the
tech
acting
classes.
side of things, there's lots of you know, other classes that you know, fill in the rest of the components. Because I mean, it is like clockwork. But what was so interesting for me on this show, it was the first time I was on the production staff. You know, I've otherwise been on the performance family. You know, and I like to think about it as different families. You have the directing family, the stage managing family, the tech family, the performing family, and they do interact with each other, but their jobs are different, their challenges are different, and they do have a unity that's sort of, you know, slightly separate but slightly overlapping. But you know, to someone who's, you know, new to this, and you know, I was new to this not too long ago. You know, our faculty is amazing. Take acting 1, or you know, something else that, you know, piques your interest, and just take it seriously. You know, really put a lot into it, and see how much you can get out if you're interested.
Thank you, Professor McLeod, for joining us.
And to all of our listeners out there, thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for our next episode of Alcast.